we have yet to talk about this Slaughterhouse album. You want to start with the Slaughterhouse thing?
I usually like high notes, but run it.
All right, listen. The Slaughterhouse album, what was that released on March 11th? And I don't like dating our shows too much, but it's the 17th, and we're just not really getting to it. The name of the album was what was it? Shoot, I listened to it all day today.
Oh, it was Death at Slaughterhouse.
It's The Rise and Fall of Slaughterhouse.
Synonyms.
The Rise and Fall of Slaughterhouse. I'm going to say this, man. I appreciate everybody in the room saying congratulations, happy anniversary, and all that. We really appreciate that. First of all, let me go down the line. We're going to talk about Slaughterhouse. We're going to talk about this Elzhi album that we didn't get to talk about or speak to. We're going to try to preview a little bit of this Pusha T album that's coming next week. We're going to talk about this RZA and DJ Scratch. We're also going to double back and kind of give a recap of that whole, Kanye documentary. We don't need to get too into that. But, it's just a lot going on with Kanye in the news right now. And we're going to talk about this lawsuit with Dame Dash and Jay-Z and how the narrative is kind of going and how Dame Dash has spoke out against certain narratives and said, no, it's not going like this. But I think that we owe it to our listeners to kind of break down this situation and see both sides of it, because the media seems to be a little bit one-sided when it comes to these situations. But first off, the rise and fall of Slaughterhouse.
Yes.
Okay.
You want me to go or you want to go?
I want to start off quoting Chris Rock.
Okay, there we go.
And we talked about this earlier, man. Chris Rock has always said in hip hop, and I think how about you say it? Because you spoke to it perfectly.
Right. Well, Chris Rock, has this joke, and it's really not that funny when you think about it. It's not that funny. Like, Chris Rock's best jokes aren't funny at all, actually, and that's why you're laughing, because it's either that or cry. But he says a rapper's first album is about their whole life up to that point. Their second album is about everything that happened to them since they've gotten money and fame and life has changed. The third album is pretty much just them reminiscing from there on out about everything that happened.
What they used to do. What they...
Number two. Yeah.
Yeah, what we created, what we used to do, how things used to go. Listen.
Yeah, look what I did.
Look what I did. Listen, it gets no more, and I'm trying to fix my words here to be respectful of the artist, because I know everybody digs deep for their art, and it gets personal, right?
Always.
But I think that this album, it reeks bitterness, even though they even addressed that in one of the songs. What song was that? The third song, where he said the title of that song is Ain't Nobody Mad. But the irony of this is the whole album sounds extremely mad. And it gets no more reminiscent than this. All right, so Slaughterhouse used to be a 4-man team, MC team.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a 2-man team with Crooked and Ortiz. And there's a lot of options when it comes to a group disbanding, especially a group that wasn't even a group that came in the gate together. This isn't like Wu-Tang or something like that, where we know all the individuals from this specific brand. They were all solo artists that came together at separate times, well, at the same time rather, but they came in the game at separate times, and they came together on some Voltron stuff to take on, a task. They did that, and that group is no more, and there are 2 members that are left, and every single song, with the exception of the Look Mama, and I want to say...
It's like 2 or 3.
Smoke. It's like 3 songs that aren't about the breakup.
Yeah.
Do you want to start? Because I got a lot to say. I know you got a lot of notes, and we probably got some of the similar stuff.
Well, I like to try to start on a positive and on a high note, so I want to say that on this album, Crooked Eye sounds great.
He does. Ortiz sounds great too. That's the
Ortiz sounds dope too, but I mean, Crooked sounds great. Like he's a great MC, and I think unfortunately he does fall into that category of like one of those guys. And when it comes to just like rapping bar for bar, I mean, you can put him almost next to anybody, which is why you really like want to root for him to like thrive as a solo artist. You know what I mean? Because
right.
you know, like as far as skill is concerned, that the skill is not a question and never really has been. You know, so that sounds great. I'm like you. I mean, especially for me. Well, I mean, I'm going to go to what something I said to you behind the scenes, which is like it seemed to me on this album. When it came to Joe Budden, they were Mike Tyson. When it came to Royce, they were Floyd Mayweather in terms of their approach. And so some of it does come off very like sour grapes. Like, because if you look at it, I mean, of the four, you know, Budden and Royce have had more, I would say, notable careers. Budden may be more so on the personality side of things. Royce, straight up and down as an MC, has had more success than all three of them. Okay? If we're just talking about on some rap, you know, level stuff, Royce.
I think overall, Royce is probably the best MC of the four.
If we're talking
I think
about
straight bar for bar, I'm going Crooked.
Yeah, bar for bar, probably Crooked. Overall, Royce. And so that's not any misnomer or misgiving that Royce would probably have the best career of the four. But I think truly like Joe Budden's success and crossover appeal with the podcast and also on reality TV did affect this group. And this is where it shows. It just doesn't show in a good light on either sides, in my opinion. I mean, it comes off sour grapes the way they're kicking it, but it's also like, too, did you really go Hollywood?
It's a lot of interesting things there, man. One of the things that is interesting is the fact that they bring up Eminem's name a few different times. And you said something very potent when you said, when they were talking about Joe Budden, it was Mike Tyson, but when it was, Royce, it was a little bit more Mayweather. Whereas when we talk about when Eminem's name was brought up, it was kind of like, yo, he's good. We're good. They even on one of the tracks, I think it was the second track, they even spoke on, or Ortiz even spoke on the fact that what Joe Budden said about Eminem's album on his podcast affected the group negatively. Shout out to Jason with the super chat. We got a $19 super chat here. He said, "Happy anniversary, fellas. Keep holding these artists accountable. By far the best hip hop podcast out. We really, really appreciate that. Good looking." Okay, so this is my thing. This is the point I was getting to when it came to what Ortiz said about Joe Budden basically reviewing Eminem's album negatively on his podcast, affecting the group. But then you got Crooked Eye on the next song saying Eminem didn't form the group, so he can't break up the group or something along those lines. Listen, Joe Budden did his job as a podcaster and told the truth about Eminem's Revival album. That's first of all.
In his opinion. Yeah, it was
his opinion. Right. His truth.
It's his podcast. It's his review.
It's his podcast. This is what listeners should want. Artists or people who are in the media, not out here kissing ass for their individual come-ups. Are y'all really mad at Joe Budden for going out there? And I remember when he said what he said about Revival, he was actually nice about it. It was really Charlemagne that was going hard.
I remember when you hit me with it, it was like, yo, I don't even think he's going in on it like
he's
that.
Not.
I think he's just being honest. And I was like, yeah, I think you're right. I was like, and I'm like, here's the thing. It's like, well, Joe can rap. So,
I'm just saying, like, even as a podcaster, though, this is the thing. Let's keep it real, guys, because none of those guys, Ortiz, Royce, or whoever, everybody that was getting on Joe for speaking his opinion about Revival, none of them said Revival was hot. You know what I'm saying? So, y'all mad at this man because he didn't say that Eminem's album was good. When asked, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's his job to talk about these things. How are y'all mad about that? Don't be mad about that. That's first of all, that's crazy to me. And then
You
he was labeled as being disloyal. And so the other side of that coin, Coop, is okay, he did that. You guys have done nothing but sing Eminem's praises. Where's that gotten you?
Well, no. See, this is what I mean is that like it financially probably at a certain point didn't behoove Royce or Joe to be as involved or to want to be as involved. And when the response changes, the love is going to change. But you also, on the other side, have to understand why the love's changing because it's like it's a job, and at a job, your hope is to maximize your earning potential. And so you can't be mad when people within the camp are maximizing their earning potential. You have to be doing the things that are maximizing your earning potential. And it's kind of funny because Ortiz starts off the album talking about all the other things he has going on investment wise and that he's good. It just doesn't come off attitude wise from the tone of the album like he's good. Like overall, it's not like he's saying like F them and what they got. It feels that way though.
Cold Blooded says something and I want to address. He said, Mike, if you had a bad opinion about Coop / you being friends with him, would you talk trash about his work publicly or would you talk to him in person? We're talking about music, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's the thing. And I think that people, first of all, we don't know what people's personal relationships are when it comes to Eminem and Joe Budden. I mean, like, do y'all really think Eminem and Joe Budden are super close, right? These are people who are just public figures. Now, if one person had a podcast and another person is putting the album out, do we expect, even if that person had been signed to that person before, we expect that person to not tell the truth about, or, his opinion, his honest opinion about the effort? This is what we talk about when we talk about people having yes men, right? When it comes to Kanye, he goes out there, does whatever. Everybody has to say, "Oh, well, you don't have any people that's gonna sit here and tell you the truth." But for whatever reason, with Eminem, we can't tell him the truth about his music. Y'all know the Revival was trash. Let's keep it a buck. The man's first single was with Beyonce, and y'all don't even know the name of that song. Eminem and Beyonce, two of the biggest stars ever, got on a record together, and they did nothing. But that's neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. But yeah, I found that interesting that they found different ways on each songs to drag Joe Budden. And
no, there appears to be some sort of focal point about it. So it appears to be like, when amongst men, respect is something that is like very, very subjective, and they might see because Joe moves in certain circles now, Mike, and operates in a certain way, what he may deem a level of respect in business may now be different. And so they may not have liked the way that he was handling his business, but it might have been the way that he handles business now. And, and that's why I'm saying it's like, well, if the way he handled business now is increasing his earning potentials as a man, you really can't fault the next man for that. You need to be doing what you can be doing to increase your earnings potential. And I also want to say something too. It's like, and this was my takeaway from it too, is that like, well, I like all these guys individually as MCs, most notably Royce probably, and as a lyricist, Crooked. But I never knew of them to be as big a deal the way that they're making it out to be on this album either.
Greatest group ever, I think Ortiz said in one of the songs. Mr. Pragmatic with the super chat. Appreciate you with the 1999. He said, just discovered this show after Nas's Magic release. What a hidden jewel y'all have here. Peace, brother. Appreciate that. All right. To piggyback on what you said, yes, I agree with you. And maybe because I know a lot of the material from the individuals before they collectively got together, I like the concept of someone like a Slaughterhouse getting together with all of those super MCs, kind of like the Four Horsemen with Cannabis, Corrupt, Raz Kaz, and Killer Priest did, in theory. But, song for song, I like them more individually. Now, that kind of goes to something else I was thinking about. Even in today's time, when it comes to music, in hip hop currently, like the current scope of hip hop, we don't have the kind of formats now where people are making songs with 4 verses. So being 2 members, if it were Ortiz and Crooked, and really going at that and going at it hard and maybe teaming up with a producer to do the whole joint, I think that will fly. I don't even think they had to dwell on any of this because they're so dope as MCs. I really wish we could have heard them do like maybe one song about this and the rest of it just do an album, you know?
Right, and because I mean, because for me, and this is where I bring that up, but the sour grapes part is like I don't like how many times Ortiz makes the reference to him being signed by Dre. It's like, no, fam, like we know who you are. Like you don't even gotta like do that because somebody checking this project out already knows that. You know what I'm saying? So when he keeps on stating it over and over again, it's like goes back
It's
to that
that
Chris Rock,
reminiscent shit.
that reminiscent thing, and it's like, no, fam, like we already know that you can rhyme. This is not about if you can rhyme. It's not about that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but are you making a quality project with Crook? Like, how are the hooks? How is the beat selection? How
I
is the
didn't like,
chemistry?
you know what? That was another thing. The beat selection was okay,
It was just
but
something.
I didn't like the hooks.
I didn't like the hooks at all. So this is my problem when 4-man tandems of this caliber or 2-man and team up like this. Because immediately my thought before I listened to the album was like, well, who's going to be singing some of the hooks for me? Because that's what I felt like this album was going to need to feel more well-rounded with some hook game. And I don't even mean singing the hooks like you got to go get a singer. I mean like go get Stove.
You know, this is the thing, man. And we talk about groups giving closure and all that stuff all the time, or at least I do. Outkast specifically. And I think Crooked said something on the record where he was like, I don't want to tweet about it. I'd rather rap about it.
No,
And,
yeah, I like that.
or something like that. But, in theory, that sounds good. But when you got to hear a whole album about it, I would rather hear a Twitter rant.
You want to know it? That's one of those things that fundamentally sounds more sound than the actual play out of it. Because
Yeah.
when you're saying that, you're thinking, oh, we're just addressing that on record once, not over the duration of a full length play. Correct.
It was a tough listen, man. Especially I got to like song 4, and I'm like, is every song gonna be about Joe Button?
No, I listened to everything.
I listen to everything too.
Yeah. I mean, I listened to everything, and I listened to it through. But my sentiments are much like yours about it. And here's another thing: if they're talking about the missed opportunity of the 4 of them, well, there's another missed opportunity with the 2 of them, in my humble estimation.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. But see, the thing is, man, and like I said in the previous show before I even heard the album, Joe Budden's retired from rap. So what do y'all want him to do exactly? I mean, it's not like he's out here putting out his own solo records and won't make a record with y'all like Andre does with Big Boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like he's giving verses to Frank Ocean and not giving verses to Big Boy. He's just retired altogether. So it's like, what exactly do y'all want from him? It's not like he's out here giving features or something and won't mess with y'all.
No, and I mean, and you have to understand something too. It's just like, well, what does that say? If Budden, of the 4 of them, I would say in terms of career, he'd probably be second behind Royce. But what does it say that he's willing to retire about his media career from rap? That's saying that, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I mean about, like, they may misplace, like, the weight of what the group meant. Not them as individual MCs, because to be honest, I feel like their weight is heavier as individual MCs.
I think the best song on the album is the one where they're not talking about any of this. I think the song "Look Mama" is the best song on here.
I mean, I can see why you feel that way. It's kind of hard to maneuver through some of the songs too, because the rhetoric is the same, just approached from a different angle.
Yeah, it is, and you hear different stories. And again, I don't want to be disrespectful, grown men in their situation, but it comes across as gossip after a while. Like if you talk about the same thing over and over in different ways, it's no way that it's not going to turn into gossip. You know what I'm saying?
And I will say this, like, Crooked was more taking jabs and then going on what I like to call rap gymnastic displays. You know what I'm saying?
He was.
Like he was talking a little something, and then he would just start killing the mic. So the album's not all bad. Like his mic performances for me, and that's not to say Ortiz were bad. It's just I think Crooked's special when he gets in that zone. He's in a nice pocket as an MC on this album, and so that's the highlight of it. But it just makes you want the subject matter to be different even more.
I don't love the approach that Ortiz took on a lot of them. Again, it comes across as very. He comes across as bitter. And you know, I say that respectfully, just based on what I'm hearing. He might not be, but he comes across as that on the record in ways like you said. Crooked really doesn't. Crooked's like, you know, fuck it, this is what we're talking about and whatever. But I think that all of this kind of speaks to their lack of chemistry together. I feel like, let's just say if for whatever reason Wu-Tang broke up and Ray and Ghost had to make an album together, they're just going to make that album together.
Period.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that when you look back at, you know, what Slaughterhouse was able to do, it just comes across that Ortiz and Crooked I don't have the chemistry that, let's just say, if Royce and Crooked I made this.
That I didn't really explore that possibility. That's a possibility too. But, you know, so let's go to the Wu-Tang thing for a minute. This is what I mean about groups like this. It's like, well, when you have like a bunch of super lyricists, you need even more super lyricists. Like, you can't just have like 4 at that point. You need to actually have like, that's what Wu-Tang showed us. It's like, man, it's actually better when you have more and you can spread them out over tracks. So it's like, I kind of got to pick and choose and figure them out a little bit more. When it's like 3 or 4 now and it's like lyricists, it's hard, and this is what I mean. Wu-Tang really, really worked because Method Man and Old Dirty Bastard were stars.
Well, that's true.
Star power.
Now that's for sure. Raekwon too, to a certain extent,
and Ray to a certain degree too. So it's like you had guys with platinum selling power within Wu-Tang who happened to be great lyricists and MCs as well.
How would you rate the production? You know, just give it a grade.
I mean, on a scale of what?
No, I'm giving it a grade. A, B, C, D, F.
I would probably give the production C.
Okay.
Just like flat. I would say the production was average. It was solid.
I think it had its moments.
Yeah, there were some moments on there, but that's what I mean. I mean, this is a compliment or complimentary to them. They are the caliber of MCs that when they get the rhyming and getting it off, sometimes you can get lost behind the beat a little bit because they're dope. They're dope MCs. Dope MCs do that to you, and it make you go back and be like, hold on, how that beat sound?
LP says Joel doesn't have star power.
No, I mean that's what I'm saying. So Royce is probably the one with the most star power to me, and it's like I just bought a Wu-Tang plan. I said Method Man, Old Dirty Bastard, Raekwon and shit. You know what I mean?
I think Joe has the most star power.
No, I think you're just saying that because of the podcast. Because it's like, to be honest with you, Def Jam tried to make him a big star, and that's when we found out he had mental health issues.
Joe has personality, and you know what? And I think it can't be. I would be remiss to not note that Joe is a pioneer in this podcast game. When you talk about MCs or any artist crossing over to the podcast game, he made that world. Like, he created that world for a lot of MCs to go out there and do what they're doing. Like what Gilly and them are doing. All of us, you know, we weren't notable MCs, but MCs who were notable on that stage and were able to cross over and do their own podcast, they stand on the shoulders of Joe. And we got to give him that credit for that.
I don't disagree with anything you just said.
And again, I think that
accurate. Yeah.
My thing is, it seems like the only thing, I don't know. I mean, from what I got from this album, the only thing they're mad at Joe about really is the fact that he's not rapping with them. I mean, you can't just be like, look, yo, you got another career going on. That's what's up. Do your thing.
And also, too, how old is Joe?
He's 40-something, right?
Is he? I mean, that's what I'm saying, because I feel like Budden's a little older than me, so I feel like he's in his early 40s.
Yeah, he's in his early 40s.
Right. I mean,
Joe got the biggest hit of all of them, right? Pump, 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 pump it up.
Pump It Up is probably the biggest hit, yeah.
I think that Royce is just the most talented MC. And again, it's showing that even when all of this was going on, Royce made the Book of Ryan, the allegory. He's fine. Like, he's out here just doing his
Well,
thing.
you want to know what? They reference his Grammy nomination.
They did.
You know, there's reference to not being on the Book of Ryan, I believe. But I think that's the thing about it. That's what Royce is kind of saying. Royce is kind of like, I'm nice anyway. Like, you want to toss this bag? Like, I'm nice in the group, nice as solo MC. I'm nice next to M. And that's what I mean is like I can actually hear on this album how Royce has kept relationships with so many different people, because even when talking about the Lupe thing, I'm thinking, man, like Royce got relationships all over the place. It's like he got relationships with dudes. Think about it. He was on some of Griselda stuff. Griselda's all over the allegory. You know what I mean? So it's like, man, he keeps up with the old school guys, the new school guys. He keeps a relationship with Shady.
I think Royce is the best overall MC in Detroit, in my opinion.
I've always said that. I've always been of that frame of mind. Since I've heard Boom, I was like, ooh, like that guy.
And you know what? The song really got me for Royce back in the day. It was The King of Kings. You remember that song? Anybody who hadn't heard that song, go look that up on YouTube. King of Kings.
I'd have to go back.
It was like, it had this hook where it's like, I wake up and I don't know where I am. It's like he's talking about being formed as Christ or whatever. But anyway, when I heard that back in the day, this was like 2000. I was like, yo, this dude is crazy with it. I was like, M's nice, but yeah, he's something.